All right, so I took a little sabbatical, and I'm back. Welcome back, yay! So, I'm gonna try not to take any more of those. Unfortunately, I don't have any planned, so that's kind of the thing. They're not planned; they just happen. I'm gonna roll with it, and so here we are. All right, well, on this inaugural Stashcast, we're gonna talk a little bit about some magic. Woo! So, for those of you who are new here, I'm Iridia Naware. I'm the resident witch and creatrix over to Radia's Hand and Danaus Divine, where I create myth, magic, and meaning for your everyday life through art, intuition, and energy work. And on Sundays, I like to do a little thing called a Stashcast. So, Stash is a holdover from my work as an artist, and specifically in the fiber community. Stash usually refers to yarn stashes, but it can also mean tool stashes, and for those of you who are artists and do not work specifically with fiber, it can mean stashes of beads, buttons, fabric, any bits and bobs that you use in your creative pursuits. Now, for those of you who are along the creative bent, you know that it's very, very easy to acquire Stash, and it takes like almost no time at all. But Stash is not limited to the creative people. As a root worker and a magical practitioner, I have a tendency to scavenge. A little bit of a vulture, going out and collecting found objects, wildcrafting, and just things like that. It's part of it is because my practice is very, very kitchen witch. It's very practical. It's very, hey, use what you got. While I will certainly buy things when I have to, it is always nice and kind of extra special when I can get things out of nature. There's a certain kind of power or magic from getting stuff from also the land around you and the space that you come from, especially when you're doing certain kinds of workings. So, let's see. I don't know that I got to the herbal curios like I planned last week. My brain is just not working. So I can't answer that. But this was a continuation. When I set up the post and I was taking pictures, I realized, you've got a lot of stuff that is not herbs. It's not seeds or flowers or leaves or roots. And it's still stuff that's used in magic. So I wanted to share that with you. And so real quick, and because of the nature of this, because I had to take everything out of my cabinet and then take pictures of stuff and then rearrange it because I have everything very carefully organized. I won't be showing you anything on camera, which is what I usually try to do when I do stash casts. But if you scroll into the post below, you can see all the bits and bobs that I've got. And I'll walk you through some of what's in the pictures because some of it's easier for me to identify by sight, but it's not necessarily marked because I know exactly what stuff is, right? It's my collection. Of course I know what stuff is. So, what it's used for. A lot of times it's used for magic. I mean, that's pretty much it. Magic, root work, jar, container spells, can be used for candle magic, any kind of ritual that calls for whatever the item is. There you go. They can be used in charm bags as well, and mojos and gris and stuff like that. It could also be used in poppet magic. And, in the case of things like war water, which is not pictured here, but I do have some brewing, and it's not pictured because it's still brewing. That's kind of something that you would use all on its own, but you could also add it to stuff. So there's that. And let's see. And what I'm using it for is pretty much all that. I use it both personally and professionally. I don't do magic for myself too terribly often. I actually am usually doing magic for other people, generally in a professional capacity. Every now and then I do a little community outreach where I will do things pro bono, but because this is like how I make money, clearly I have a limit on how much of that I do, and it's usually under very specific circumstances. But I also believe that, just because you're in a specific financial situation doesn't mean that you shouldn't have access to certain things. And so I try to do a little outreach where I can, and to the point that it's feasible. So that's important. And then most of it is, a lot of it's jar work. I do have a few things that are candles. So the jar work is the easiest one to demonstrate. And if you look below, you've got a picture of one of my sour jars that looks quite nice. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, everything that's a curio is actually inside. Everything outside is, they're curios, but they're herbal. So burrs, and I mean, there's some glitter in there, I'm pretty sure. I think there might be some matches too. Let's see. I don't know. There were no matches at the time, but I think I put matches later. So matches would have been a curio. Specifically burnt matches. All right, what we got here? Okay. So, again, if you want to see pictures of everything, you can scroll below. And the first picture, I've got all of my jars of eggshells. So it's traditionally called cascarilla. It can be used to mark vives, which are symbols that are used in some of the Afro-Caribbean religions, specifically Hoodoo and Voodoo and some other practices, and variations on those practices from different countries, because not all of these practices are practiced the same exact way from all of the places. Haitian voodoo differs from other types, for example, in the names of the spirits that are called, and sometimes some of the work that is done, how the work is done, and etc. and so on. In the picture after that, you can see a bunch of Tupperware and some small jars. I've got everything from asafoetida, which is this really unpleasant smelling stuff used in baneful magic. I've got some sulfur powder, also called brimstone, also used in baneful magic. Yeah, there's a bit of a it's a bit of a trend. The second picture, I've got everything from hothead powder, which is a recipe that I adapted from something else, and I named it, but it's a recipe from another worker. Then I've got some mud dauber nests, which, if you've ever seen those little kind of clay looking tubes on the side of houses, that's a mud dauber. It's also a type of wasp. I've got some goofer dust that I made, and a separation dust or powder, which is it's labeled as a base. I've got some lodestone food, which is iron filings. I've got 2 jars of grave dirt. I've got eggshells, bees, beetles, cicadas, wasp nests and wasps, and I think that's everything. Yeah. So yeah, most of what I have is herbal stuff. So plants, seeds, roots, flowers, stems, leaves. I've also got some tinctures that I've made of some things that I've wildcrafted. That was super fun. I need to get more jars. More jars! The other thing is, all of these are also just stored in whatever I had. Generally speaking, you keep these in, when it comes to herbs and oils and things like that, you want to keep it in a dark, cool, dry place. You could go ahead and agree with those conditions for this stuff too, because you don't want things to mildew, you don't want things to mold, you don't want things to get stale, although sometimes you might want something stale, right, if that suits the work that you're doing. So, and then finally, the very bottom picture, you'll see my very pretty sour jar. Yeah, the sour jar. Now, normally I would put a link at the bottom if there was anything, any kind of work that I was offering. You could get it from me. I'm not currently offering any sour jars. There's a reason, and I can't tell you what it is because I don't remember, but there was a reason I hadn't added it yet. I think it's on my list, and I might just be like, need to write a listing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that is something that I do, and if you do have questions about it, you can of course drop a comment, or you can go to my website. It's linked below, Danaus Divine. and contact me there. While I don't have a listing up per se, it is still I still do the work. I do specialize in a lot of baneful work, but I also do healing work and do love workings, do money, job workings, protection stuff, as well as doing readings and the like. So I've got all of that on my website. You can just head over there, and I won't link it because it's links below, right? So I would love to hear from you. Do you have any non-herbal curios in your stash? Eggshells or crystals or stones or fabrics or little bits and bobs that you use in your magic? And if you don't have any now, have you worked with them before? What'd you do with them? You can drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe so that you can get notified when I do more videos like this. I don't do a lot of videos over here. Most of the videos that I'm putting up on Patreon, which is where this is going, are art related or creativity or inspiration, projects that I'm working on every now and then. Because first and foremost, I've always been an artist, right? I came to magic a bit later, and came to intuition a bit later than I came to art, and so it's kind of my mainstay, my fallback, and my default setting, if you will. But if you have any questions about any of the stuff that I shared, or where to get stuff, or what to do with it, or whatever, drop a comment below. I'm happy to help as I can. One thing I will say is, hey, if this is not for you, if this is not your thing, that's cool. Keep moving. It is not necessary to bash or speak ill of practitioners. Somebody doing what they want to do, that goes for me, that goes for you, that goes to anybody else in the comments. If somebody is willing to deal with consequences or do the work, whatever, that is on them. Leave them to it. I feel very strongly about that, and any comments say otherwise, I will remove them. And I will not give them any kind of energy because I don't need to. So, tomorrow, let's see, what's tomorrow? Sorry for the little wiggle shuffle, but tomorrow we're going to do our Monday motivation. That's a reward for staying to the end of the video. You get to see what we're going to do tomorrow. I'm hoping to have a video. So, tomorrow's technically President's Day. Holy shit. I don't take the day off. But, my schedule is going to be a little wonky too, so I don't know when I'm going to pop in. I'd like to pop in on time, which would be like about midday. We'll see how that works out though. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So, I hope you enjoy this, and you got any questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comments below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, consider going over to my Patreon, becoming a patron. I'm trying to grow my space over there. Honestly, I haven't really poured a lot of effort into that. Right, and I'd like to turn that around. That's one of my big goals for this year, is to bring more people over there, because it's a place that I can serve people and make things available that maybe are not affordable because of whatever, this, that, and the other. And the whole point is to inspire people and to encourage people, especially queer, non-binary folk, people of color, and any marginalized anybody. Because the reality is there, the world has a tendency to look very, very mainstream. And that means that sometimes certain voices get erased or ignored, and it can make you feel like you don't have a place. And as somebody who is queer and a person of color and, a minority religion and whatnot, I know what it's like to feel like you're the only person who looks like you doing stuff, or the only person who's like you doing stuff. And so I want to make sure that you know that, hey, there's a place for you, there's a space for you, and you are more than welcome to take up that space, because you are encouraging people who come after you to be able to have the courage to do things if they want to. So, thank you again for being here. I hope you enjoyed this Stashcast, and I will see you tomorrow, hopefully bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Yeah, that's not me. But I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!